After doing nothing but rankings the past few videos, I've decided to change things up a bit. If you're a fan of channels like Garden of Eyes or Nameless Ring, you'll be familiar with Elden Ring bosses being put up against the bosses of the older games. My biggest problem with those videos is that the bosses in question are usually past their prime, and a shadow of their former self. So, I decided to talk about who would win in a fight between two bosses. Before we do anything, let's talk about how this video is set up. Firstly, there will be 3 rounds, and the victor will be who wins the majority of rounds, no matter how close each round is. Secondly, the rules and results will differ depending on the type of fight the bosses will have. For example, duels are clean fights. No dirty tactics, like Artorias' Dirt Throw or Millennia's Lifesteal, or radical phase transitions. Phase 2 would be allowed if it's mostly similar to Phase 1. Trials by combat allow mostly anything, but they can only use their own equipment and no status effect. So Lifesteal would be allowed, but Scarlet Rot wouldn't. All-out brawls allow anything and everything, including status effects. Thirdly, as a general rule, the moveset of each boss will be taken with a grain of salt, as the older games were limited by what they could allow their bosses to do. So without further ado, let's meet today's contenders. I'm going to regret this. Introducing first, representing the Golden Order, hailing from the lands between. He is a demigod accompanied by his lion companion Throsh. Upon his name as Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. And his opponent, residing in Lothric. He was once tasked with linking the First Flame, but is now tasked with taking down a demigod. He is Champion Gundyr! And for this video, their fight will be taking place in the form of a duel. This means that Godfrey can't transition into Horaloo, but will still be able to use his ground stomp attack. Gundyr will be allowed his second phase because it's mostly similar with phase 1, with some extra melee attacks. With that out of the way, let's discuss who would win in a duel between Godfrey, first Elden Lord, and Champion Gundyr. Round 1, Strengths and Weaknesses. For this section, we'll be looking at both their strengths and weaknesses on paper, as well as any lore implications that can cause any advantage or disadvantage in the fight. Let's begin with Godfrey's strengths. He is fast, strong, and owing to Throsh, he also has a strong sense of focus. He is able to wield a colossal weapon like it's nothing and can chain attacks with it. Because he is a member of the Golden Order, he is also quite resistant to holy damage, being able to absorb 40% of it. He is incapable of being parried, although he can still be staggered. His stance and defense are both at 120 each, meaning while it's possible to break his stance, it will take quite a bit of effort. What about Godfrey's weaknesses? Well, in his Godfrey phase, he is weak to both piercing and lightning damage, unable to absorb any of them. He is weak to slash in phase 2, but that doesn't count here because of the conditions of the duel. Another great weakness with Godfrey is the fact that Throsh is constantly holding him back, meaning Godfrey is unable to do as much damage as he otherwise would. By taking away some of his savagery, he also takes away some of that relentless nature, perhaps allowing his opponent vital recovery time against him. As for Champion Gundyr, he practically matches Godfrey in terms of strength, speed and focus. Wielding a halberd requiring 30 strength and 15 dexterity, Gundyr's physical capabilities are just as large as his reach. His resistance to poison, toxic and slashing damage also means that to beat the champ, you'll have to do it the hard way. Gundyr is sadly undone by his weaknesses. Strike, lightning and frost can do a number on the champ, and despite his resistance to bleed, the Dorhe's Gnawing miracle can still deal bleed build up to him regardless. Just like Godfrey, Gundyr can also get his poise broken, but cannot be followed up with a critical attack. However, if he was to be parried, a critical strike is very much possible. So who takes a point in round 1? Well, despite Gundyr being prone to parries, Godfrey does not possess a shield, and thus cannot parry Gundyr, but Godfrey can deliver strike damage, which Gundyr is weak to. That being said, in Dark Souls 3, weak to strike damage still means a 15% absorption, as well as 18% absorption of standard damage, while Godfrey's is at a mere 10% for each. For that reason, round 1 is a tough call, but the edge just barely goes towards Champion Gundyr. Winner of round 1, Champion Gundyr. Round 2, Feats. Once again, let's start with Godfrey. He led the war against the giants and confined their flame to the mountaintop of the giants. This event caused the appearance of the Erd Tree, earning Godfrey the title as the first Elden Lord and one of the first demigods. His other feats include the siege of Castle Morn, his lone fight against the Storm Lord, and becoming chieftain of the Badlands under the name of Hoaraloo. Needless to say, Godfrey is a legend by his own merit. What about Champion Gundyr? Apparently, he was an ancient king of Lothric who was tasked as their champion to light the first flame once more. Sadly, that's about it when it comes to Gundyr's accomplishments, as Gundyr found himself in a moment of time where Firelink Shrine had no fire. For this reason, it should come as no surprise that round 2 goes to Godfrey with ease. Winner of round 2, Godfrey, first Elden Lord. Round 3, combat skills. Like I said earlier, move sets are to be taken with a grain of salt. That being said, they are a good indicator to see what the bosses are capable of relative to their respective games. As we alluded to earlier, Godfrey has many attacks associated with his axe and stomps. This includes an axe toss while he's leaping into the air, triple swing combos, overhead strikes, and his regal roar, where he sends out a shockwave from his stomp, staggering his opponent. He also has a weaker stomp, which brings the ground up and can also stagger the opponent. These attacks can chain into each other, given Godfrey's natural speed, and so getting a break from his onslaught is very difficult. For Champion Gundyr, he can also chain his attacks very seamlessly, and can change depending on which side the opponent evades. These attacks include stabs, slashes, shoulder barges, and kicks. He also has a grab attack which will be followed up with a stab if successful. Similarly to Godfrey, Gundyr can use his halberd to throw some of the ground up towards his opponent, staggering them. He also has a stomp of his own, so not nearly as mighty as Godfrey's. His greatest attack, however, is his charge. Running into you like a freight train, he can stagger the opponent 3 times before hitting them with a spinning slash from his halberd. Both of these warriors are incredibly skilled, and both have a habit of getting up close to their enemies. But that really is the deciding factor of this duel. Godfrey definitely has the advantage when keeping things at a range, but he's not one to run away from his opponent, and would rather stay as close to them as possible. For that reason, I have to give round 3 to Champion Gundyr. His ability to combine his halberd attacks with physical strikes is what gives him the edge. Godfrey would be looking for the halberd attacks, but would end up getting caught with a kick or a shoulder barge. Winner of round 3, Champion Gundyr. And your winner for this duel? Champion Gundyr. Once again, let's bear in mind we're talking about a duel here. If this was an all-out brawl, Godfrey would fight as Hoaraloo and likely ground Gundyr up into a fine powder. If this was a trial by combat, same scenario. But in terms of a duel, or even a sparring session, Gundyr is more adept, and so would win the bout. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know what you would like to see for the next fight. Honestly, I plan on going through all the Elden Ring bosses and to see who would be a good contender for them and who would win. So if you have an idea for a main boss from Elden Ring to go up against a previous game's boss, let me know. Also, please do like the video and subscribe for more of these videos. It really does help me out a lot, and it's completely free. But until next time, my friends,